Good afternoon and welcome to Second Chance. Second Chance is a weekly talk show that examines a wide range of social issues and seeks to inspire physical, emotional, social, and spiritual healing, believing that God is a God of second chances, and through faith, all things are possible. Second Chance airs live each week from the beautiful campus of Oakwood University and features real people with real issues and offers real answers. And now, here's your host, Kenneth Anderson.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Second Chance radio broadcast. I am absolutely delighted to be here with you this afternoon on this special Thanksgiving Day weekend Second Chance broadcast. We've been doing it now for 34 years and we're right back here one more time with an opportunity to share information and inspiration through the ministry of the Second Chance radio broadcast right here at Praise 90.1 FM. Based in Huntsville, Alabama, on the beautiful campus of Oakwood University. Now, you may be listening this afternoon at 90.1 FM, and if you have not heard, we have an enhanced transmitter that's now pushing out 33,000 watts of power. So there are people perhaps joining us for the very first time today. We welcome you to the broadcast. We also welcome those that are tuning in at WJOU.org. We are appreciative that you have chosen to spend this time with us. And then, of course, the live stream is up and running. We hope that if you have the ability to hop on over to Praise 90.1 FM on YouTube or Facebook, you'll be able to follow along with the conversations on today. I hope that everyone had a good Thanksgiving. And, of course, this is a season of praise and a wonderful time to be able to just simply say thank you for all of the many ways that we have experienced the blessings of God. We have some very special guests on this broadcast. I always try to make my holiday weekend shows a little bit more to it, and that's what we're going to go for today. My very first guest is no stranger to this broadcast, even though it's been a minute since he's been here, so I'm going to refamiliarize you with him on today. J.D. Blair is a proud founding member of the National Percussion Fraternity, Mu Phi Sigma Incorporated. His credo boils down to this: groove and praise to God. He's known as the Groove Regulator, and for 40-plus years, that's exactly what J.D. has done. His work reaches across all musical genres, which began in the church, and because he lived in the large parts of his life in the South, it was inevitable that country music would eventually come calling, and it did. J.D. has played with some of the biggest names in country music, including Winona Judd, Lyle Lovett, Shelby Lynn, and one of the most renowned names in music history, Shania Twain. He, of course, is someone I just get to call friend, my dude. What's up, J.D.?
Hello, how are you today?
Man, I am doing great. It is good to see you on this Thanksgiving weekend. It is, of course, as I said, a season of praise, and there's so many reasons to give thanks. And I am grateful in this moment that you've been able to grant us this short amount of time to be able to catch up with you and find out how things have been going.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you so very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, listen, man, let's just dive right into it because we actually had a chance to reconnect after a long time recently at one of our local churches. You were in the audience. I was actually on a panel. I was literally stunned to see you because we hadn't seen each other in a while. Yes, and when I looked down, I said, wait a minute, that's JD. And you kind of looked at me like, oh, that's Kenny. And so we reconnected. And, of course, the vibe was great. And I said I wanted to have you on the broadcast because the last time you were here, you basically talked a little bit about the journey. And when I say the journey in this context, I'm talking about your journey in the music industry and some of the things that have transpired over that time. But we talked about a lot more than that. And I want to kind of pick up on that today as we have our conversation. First of all, this Thanksgiving season, Thanksgiving holiday was this past Thursday. I'm going to start right out off the top without burying the headlines. What is J.D. Blair thankful for?
J.D. Blair is humbly thankful for my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ taking the time, showing the love to die for me before I was even conceived. And over the weekend, I played with Marcus Pope, Daryl Tibbs, and the Army. It was the gospel drummers night out. And just the fellowship to be able to do all gospel music and be able to give testimony. I'm grateful for that. And what I shared with the audience is that I respectfully am a Seventh-day Adventist Christian. And before that, I was a CME, Christian Methodist. And about 4 years ago, I joined a church over at Madison Mission, Pastor Doggett, in 2010. About 4 years ago, since I've been retired, it's like, why do I believe what I believe? And so I took up on what the Bible says, study to show thyself approved. So once I started studying, I found out I was dumb as a rock. Uh-huh. I thought I knew some stuff, but I didn't. And so with this journey, it goes to show that the mistakes that I've made after I became a Seventh-day Adventist Christian, but was playing jazz gigs on Sabbath, watching football on Sabbath, watching other things on Sabbath, and just having a good old time saying, hey, this is the seventh-day Sabbath and me and God are great. Well, Jesus Christ saw that coming. Once I found out about the 10 Commandments, the ones that God wrote with his finger on the 2 tablets of stone, the 4th commandment, starting off with the word remember, which tells us not to forget. Now, this version of JD makes an effort to honor the Sabbath. I shut things down and I relax and have a good time enjoying my God's presence, the creator of all things. So that being said, yours truly has broken all 10. I repeat, I have broken all 10 of those commandments at one time or another. And I point out it doesn't have to be a physical action. The Bible tells us that it can be mental. You think about it, and that's a little tick. So learning these things and then studying Bible history, I went up to the E.G. White Museum. This has been my 4th trip, and every time I go, I learn something. It's very important that we know our history so that if people ask us questions, we can answer them as best we can. So getting back to being thankful, knowing that my God has died for me, the gift that he has given me to be forgiven of the sins that I have committed and omitted, I share with everyone that my God offers that same peace and forgiveness, and it's free of charge. We're about to go into some very, very, very interesting times if you study what Bible prophecy says. So I've been looking into those things, and I'm fascinated to tell you about truthful entities like Pastor Doug Batchelor over at Amazing Facts, Amazing Discoveries, Prof V, who is the coolest cat since Miles Davis. If you check out Professor Walter Veit, his testimony, you'll see what I'm talking about. But these are gentlemen who have been there, done that, atheist, Roman Catholic, got in, got out, and then when God sent them that moment that they knew that God is real, They flipped over, and the knowledge that they have, because they're truthful sources, I'm getting this information. So God is waiting. He stands at the door and knocks. He's not going to force his way in. And correct me if I'm wrong. If I've said anything wrong, check me on it. He's
Nope.
there for you, and it's
Yeah.
free.
Yeah. All of that is so wonderful. The freedom of that, the access to that, the opportunity for that, of course, is something that we all should spend some time contemplating, because it is indeed a blessing and a privilege to have those things available to us. I have to tell you, you're just affirming the excitement I had when I ran into you, because you were talking about this phase in your life, in your spiritual growth and the transformation and the opportunity to study, which
Yes,
of
sir.
course you
Yes, sir.
nailed it right there. I think so many of us live our faith on the surface,
Yes, sir.
and we're still doing things by rote. We're still doing things because of what mommy and daddy did or what they told us, what we saw the people do. Just like you said, we have to study and show our own selves approved. We have to have that knowledge and be grounded and anchored for ourselves. And I want to ask this question, because sometimes when people go through these transformational experiences, the people around them in their sphere of influence sometimes have different responses to what you're actually experiencing. Not to say that how you respond should have anything to do with what you ultimately decide to do. But I'm just curious as to how are people in your sphere engaging with you as it relates to what you're sharing with them, because I'm sure you're not hiding it under the bushel.
That's a great question. Like the late great pastor C.D. Brooks said, once you commit to serving God and following those commandments, you won't have to worry about your friends. The ones that respect you will stick around. The ones that think you're peculiar or strange, they will find their way out of the circle. So it's been interesting, fascinating that I've had about four of my friends that say, well, JD, I just want the truth, man. I just want the truth. So we pray about it. The truth is presented through the word and through these entities that I mentioned earlier, their Bible, their links. And to this day, none of those folks have said, man, I get it, I understand. One has said that he admits that the seventh day is the Lord's Sabbath, and he gets it. But he's happy at his church because they likes the people there and they feed the homeless and do good things. So my thing is I'm getting excited. You have to excuse me. Before I joined the church, I had an encounter with some SDAs, and I was younger, and it was a type of approach to where it was the Bible is in this hand, and I'm getting beat upside the head, told that if I don't do this, if I don't do that, I'm going to hell, and that stuck with me. So after several years, and I became an SDA, I remembered that, and I did not want to present that type of image to people that I witnessed to. My thing is talk about the love of Jesus Christ first. If they're interested, they'll look into it, and then they can learn about the other things as the Holy Spirit dictates. It's not my place to judge somebody and tell them that they're going to hell if they don't do X, Y, Z. That's above my pay scale. I tell you what I know. I don't think. I know what comes out of the Bible as I found to be true. And then it's up to you to take it or leave it. And if you want to do it, look it up for yourself to make sure I'm telling you the truth.
How important is it for you? And I know it is to some degree, but I'm fascinated in anticipation of hearing what you may have to say about this. How important is it for you to mentor others, especially our youth? Because you just said something that resonated with me, because I've heard it over and over and over again about young people getting thumped and even older people sometimes being thumped, and how that sometimes leaves a bad taste in people's mouth. How important is it for you to mentor young people in the context of the relevance of their experiences and the challenges that they may be facing and still be a voice of clarity in their lives so that they're able to make decisions for themselves and be accountable to themselves?
I can start by saying is I feel that I fail both as a husband and a father when I look back at my track record. Mistakes I've made, good and bad, being on the road, not at home, missing important events, and not being a dedicated person of faith at the time. So now my children are grown, they're parents. We've got a couple of grandkids and all this stuff. And all I can do at this point is pray for my family, pray for the household, that everybody stays grounded and connected with the Savior. The thing with the young people, when I teach my drum students, I ask if it's okay if we pray before we start the lessons. And I have yet to have one that say, no, I'm not into that. So once we start, it's kind of like you're planting the seed, and you can eventually turn the drum lesson into a vehicle that relates to how you engage real life challenges as you get older. Because, a drum lesson can be very, very difficult. Life can be very, very difficult. Drum lessons, you have to read the notes. You have to do what the notes say. You have dynamics. You can be quiet, and then you can crescendo into something loud. Life is the same way. And if you play by the rules that our Creator has established, it's going to be testy at times, but you learn how to live by faith. That's the one thing I would say a lot of us are missing the boat on, because when the time comes that we will be tested, we will need to know how to live by faith. And so the young people, I saw a gentleman running sound over the weekend, and we caught up. He's SDA, and I asked him a question about something. He's like, I didn't know that. And so that to me is like ding, 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 ding. We plant happy thoughts. But we need to know that this God that has love, 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 eventually is coming back with a little bit of wrath, and it's going to hurt. And you need to be on the right side. I am suggesting that you should be on the right side of the fence. Hopefully that helped.
Yeah. I am always at this, we're both, we're a couple of gentlemen of a certain age.
Yes, sir.
And so we have several decades now behind us.
Yes, sir.
And I think about that often. I just turned 67 on my last birthday. And so
Awesome.
Listen, God is good, man. Because
Amen.
when I think back over the journey, it's like, whoo, he's brought me through this and that and the other. And I'm still standing. It's just amazing in itself. I'm in awe of that.
Yes, sir.
And I just wonder from your perspective, because this was a moment for you in terms of your reflection on your spiritual growth, your spiritual grounding, about the journey itself. Talk to me a little bit about some of the more important things that you've learned along the course of your journey. And you can pick up at any point you want, but, I think that we all have experiences that provide us with an opportunity to learn. All experiences do not create learning opportunities, because I believe that learning involves change of behavior. And so when we hear something, that's one thing. But when we learn something, we're then challenged to do something different. And so I wonder, from your perspective on your journey, what are some of the more important lessons and themes that have emerged for your life?
Well, speaking of change, I'm fascinated to even hear this coming out of my mouth. But I finally got the gist of dying to self daily. And that being said, is J.D. Blair, dying to self, getting rid of the lust of the flesh and cravings of worldly things, to allow the Holy Spirit to come in and sweep up the mess and gradually change me bit by bit. So there are things now My headspace is in a place that when I go to Publix, I still work at Publix Monday through Thursday, 8 to 12, out in Franklin, Tennessee. If y'all are by the store at McKay's Mill, holler at me. I'll bag your groceries and walk your stuff out to the car. And I get to fellowship. I get to witness to people. I know one day I'll get in trouble for it, but we know who's in control at the end of the day. And I'm out here running, pushing my cars, getting the cardio, and it's like, uh, my yoke is easy, my burden is light. And the more I continue to try and submit to my creator and do as he says, it's like there's this peace and everything becomes, it slows down so that you can see things and you can ask for the spiritual discernment so that you can cut through things when you see and hear and know whether somebody's telling the truth or not. Part of that journey, what I'll share with you also is that when I retired, I had a lot of time on my hands. And so I would come to the house and just work on music and just have a good old time. And I started with a little glass of wine, some about, yeah, everything's good in moderation.
Right.
Aha. Okay. So you know where I'm going with that. My little moderation over the course of time wound up getting out of control. But because I was able to mix and have a good time, I wound up eventually going from that one little glass to a bottle a day. A bottle a day, and could still function. Wouldn't be out in public, just at home doing my music and all that kind of stuff. And a friend of mine named Randy, he was a good friend. He was on dialysis, and we were talking about this. He's like, Jay, you don't want none of this, son. You need to let that stuff alone. I'm on dialysis right now. And I thought, you better listen to that because that's probably coming from somewhere important. Lo and behold, I told him, okay, Randy, I'm going to dial it back. I'll dial it back. He said, okay. I started dialing back, but not quickly enough. A pain hit me in my lower back. And I was like, okay, God, I got it. Make it stop. And he's like, I'm going to let you sit with this just for a minute so you can see the road you're going down. I was also taking sleeping aids so I could get a little bit of sleep because this never shuts off, the music and the tinnitus and all that stuff. So I look good on the outside, but on the inside, I was destroying the temple. You know what I'm talking about now. I didn't realize that this is the temple, one of the stones to that spiritual sanctuary. So now that I take care of the temple, I don't drink, I don't do drugs. I'm a vegetarian now since 2013. And I say that because when I was on the road touring, my contract had everywhere we went, Pepsi's had to be on the tour bus. They had to be backstage. They had to be in the venue. They had to be at the hotel. And then my staple food was turkey Lunchables, processed. And then I had Captain Crunch, Crunch Berries, crispy treats, 2% milk. All that stuff was killing me and I didn't know it. I had sinuses, I had migraines, joint pain. Because of the Pepsis, I had to walk around with a pack of Zantac in my pocket. I got tested in 2013 and Nancy said, you don't need surgery. You just need to stop eating this, this, and this. And I was like, really? And I was sarcastic. I looked at her and said, well, I'm going to try your little diet and I'm going to come back in a month and tell you it didn't work. And she just smiled and said, okay, brother, I'm telling you, 2 weeks into that diet, I sat up. No shoulder pain, walked around, was like, I'm not congested anymore. And then it's like, oh, I'm not having any migraines. And the kicker was like, well, I don't need these Zantac anymore because my stomach's not hurting. So there is something to maintaining the body temple. And I'm just sharing with everybody my journey. I'm not telling anybody to do X, Y, and Z. You have to study for yourself.
That's right. And I will concur with that completely. I've said over and over on this broadcast, I decided to walk away from beef and chicken
Yes,
in
sir.
17 years ago now. And I think one of the reasons when I tell people now that I'm 67 and they look at me and they go, "You what?" They
You
can't
look
believe it
great, man.
because
You look great.
listen, I'm trying to hold it down as long as I can. I know genetics catches up with you at some point, but hopefully mom and dad has some really super genes going on. And I feel great. That's the point I want to make. My mind is clear. My body is healthy. I was able to retire this year on October the 1st from my life career of being employed. And people have asked me now for the past 2 months, what's it like? It's been awesome because I was able to do so in my right mind with my good health.
Yes,
And
sir.
so I think that is a tremendous blessing. And as you said, I don't preach to anybody about what they do. I don't, spot check their plates or their shopping carts. And you're in public, so you certainly would have that opportunity if you wanted to. But, fortunately, you don't. But, good, healthy eating and taking care of ourselves. Self-care, in fact, during the pandemic, that became number one for me.
Yes, sir.
I became number one. There was nothing selfish about that. I realized I needed to invest as much in me as possible. And I'm just so happy to hear about your journey, your testimony. This will not be the last time I reach out to you
Yes,
to
sir.
talk with you about your journey, because I know you're going to have so much more to share in this process. But in the meantime, I know you are doing some things on the ground with the music lessons and things of that nature. If people wanted to connect with you and find out a little bit more about how they can perhaps get under your wing, because I always tell people too, you need a good mentor. You need somebody who's going to show you how to move through life, because it's not an easy thing to do. How
Yes,
would
sir.
people connect with you?
Well, I'll put my email address out there, jd.blair@mac.com. And the music is hiding out at bandcamp.com. And if you go to bandcamp.com, just do a search for JD Blair, the Groove Regulator, and my materials will pop up. I will warn you ahead of time that because of this gradual transition that I'm going through, there are some tracks that will not be in there within the next couple of weeks. So if you're going to check out everything, you better move quickly.
You're not only work in progress, but transition is taking place even as we speak. JD, listen, man, this is a great way to kick off my Thanksgiving weekend broadcast. It is great to see you. Great to have you back on the broadcast. Great to reconnect with you a couple of weeks ago over at New Life. And I look forward to having additional opportunities to connect with you.
Likewise, sir. And before you go, please bless us with a prayer, please, and thank you.
Oh, absolutely. We thank you in this moment for this privilege and this opportunity to simply say thank you. This is a season of gratitude. Never let us be careless in our ability, in our intentionality, in our strategic efforts to simply say thank you. Thank you for your goodness. Thank you for your grace. Thank you to others who are around us, providing support and love and care and concern and empathy in our lives. Give us more of all of those things so that we can treat people as you would have them to be treated. In your precious name and for his sake. Amen.
Amen.
Brother.
Yes, sir.
Have a great weekend, and we will talk again soon.
Bless you and likewise. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man. Great way to start the broadcast today. That was JD Blair, the Groove Regulator. Long career, 40 years of performing. I didn't give you the whole list of people that he's performed with, but I told you about Winona Judd, Lyle Lovett, Shania Twain, but we can throw in there George Duke, Yo-Yo Ma, Kirk Whalum, BB and CeCe Winans, Donnie McClurkin, the Clark Sisters, Bootsy Collins, Yolanda Adams, and so many more. JD is that dude who is in transition, so be careful. When you come across his path, he's going to drop something on you, and we're appreciative of that. Love that brother for sure, and hope that you will connect with him in some meaningful way. I'm going to come back in just a moment. I'm going to do a short transition, let you know who you're listening to, and then I'm going to bring in my next guest right now. I'm Kenny Anderson. It's Second Chance. I hope that you're having a fantastic and amazing day.
Transforming lives.
Transforming lives.
You're listening to Second Chance with Kenneth Anderson.
Welcome back to the broadcast on this very special Thanksgiving weekend edition of the Second Chance radio broadcast. My first guest, once again, thank you to him, J.D. Blair, for kicking things off on this amazing broadcast on today. My next guest, I have been really excited and anticipating talking to him. He and I met many years ago, but I've watched his work and been inspired by his work and encouraged by his work for many, many years. He has been on our broadcast before, but it's been a very long time, and I want to bring him on right now. Phil Wilson is an internationally renowned HIV/AIDS advocate and activist. He's the founder and former president and CEO of the Black AIDS Institute, a think tank whose mission is to stop the AIDS pandemic in African-American communities. He announced his retirement from the Institute in February of 2018 and stepped down at the end of that year. He's currently a board member or trustee member of AMFAR, the Foundation for AIDS Research, one of the world's leading nonprofit organizations dedicated to the support of AIDS research, HIV prevention, treatment education, and advocacy. This, of course, is World AIDS Day, and I could not think of a better, more appropriate guest to have on the broadcast than Mr. Phil Wilson himself. Phil, welcome back to the Second Chance radio broadcast.
Well, thank you, Kenny, my brother. How are you doing?
Man, I'm doing great, man. It is good to see you, and it is good to know that you're still moving in ways that are making an impact in our world today.
Absolutely. As my friend Shirley Ralph says, every day above ground is a good day, and it's better to be seen than to be viewed. So wow. I am celebrating because I'm not being viewed, and thanks to you, I'm being seen.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't get any better than that.
It really does. And on just a wonderful weekend and also a wonderful day, a day of significance, a day that you and I both have acknowledged for so many years now. It was in 1987 that I learned that my sister Annette, my younger sister, at the age of 28, had contracted the HIV virus. She was passed just about 6 to 7 months after we learned about her diagnosis in Brooklyn, New York. I've been mindful, conscientious, and in this fight in many different ways since that time. And so have you, Phil. Tell me about how you came to this particular place of advocacy and fighting for the things that you fought for so many years.
Well, I've been in the battle since the very, very beginning. And like your sister, it's personal for me. In 1982, I discovered that I was HIV positive. And that was really, really early in the pandemic when basically people were told, I was told, you have about 6 months to live and you should go home and put your affairs in order. And I was in my 20s and I thought, I don't have any affairs to put in order. So I have a choice. I had a choice. I could either go home and prepare to die, or I could focus on living. I decided to focus on living because I understood that the dying would take care of itself. And as Audre Lorde said, when we speak, we are afraid. Our words will not be heard nor welcome. But when we are silent, we're still afraid. So we might as well speak, remembering that we were never meant to survive. And here I am, literally nearly 45 years later, and I'm still being seen and I'm not being viewed. So, that's a blessing.
It is a huge blessing. And the work that you have been a part of, that you have allied yourself with, aligned yourself with, and immersed yourself in for so long has clearly made a difference. I want to ask you this question on this World AIDS Day. Where are we right now with this disease? What do we know? What are we doing? What are we learning? Where are we right now?
That's an excellent question. And as many of these questions, there's good news and there's bad news. There is good news in that we have made tremendous advances, remarkable advances. So in 2024, as we go into 2025, here's where we are. We know how to diagnose the disease. So today, you can get an HIV test almost anywhere, and it's usually free, and you can get the results back in less than a minute in some cases. So people can find out their HIV status. Number two, We have better epidemiology information, so we know where the hot spots of the epidemic are down to the census tract or zip code. So we know where people are getting infected. So we can diagnose people. We know where the pandemic is. We have treatment tools. Today, if you're newly diagnosed, if you go on appropriate treatment, you actually can expect a life expectancy of a person who does not have HIV. That's tremendous, and I'm living proof of that, and so I'm proof that when people have the love and support of family and friends, I want to emphasize the love and support of family and friends, because that's the thing, and the treatment that we need and deserve, we can live long and productive lives. So we have better diagnostics, we have better epidemiology, we have better treatment. And the great news is that we have remarkable prevention tools. So today, a person like myself, if I'm on proper treatment, I cannot spread the virus, so if you have treatment and it suppresses the virus, you can't spread it to another person. On the other side of the spectrum, so we can prevent acquisition. So we can prevent transmission by making sure people living with HIV have the treatments that they need and deserve. We can prevent acquisition by what's called PrEP. So a person who does not have HIV, they can take PrEP, and that can block acquisition of disease. Okay, so we have diagnostic tools, we have surveillance tools, we have treatment tools, we have prevention tools. What's not to love about that, right? But here's the deal: as everything in America, these tools are not available evenly. Now you're in the South, and particularly in the Southeast United States, we continue to have problems, even with all these tools, with people continuing to get infected, particularly people continuing to get sick, and people continuing to die. Now, people want to do the blame and shame game around that. Now, and part of the issue is that we have to be careful that while we're not where we used to be, and we're still not where we need to be. And so having improvements is not the same as getting the job done. And this is football season, right? And so there's lots of games every week where there's one team that is ahead by 7 or 8 points or what have you. And then at the last second, something happens and the other team wins. So it's not over until it's over. And it doesn't matter if you're ahead. If you don't keep your foot to the pedal, you still can lose. Yeah. And in some parts of the country and in some populations, that's what's happening. Because people are not getting the information that they need, or they don't have access to the treatment that they need.
Yeah, that's such a great point, too. And I want to kind of go back to your point on testing, because I still think that testing is one of the critical pieces in this whole conversation. And what are your thoughts about testing in terms of how people think about it, the need for it, and getting access to it?
Well, you just ran a piece from the United Negro College Fund. A mind is a terrible thing to lose, right? And so knowledge is a powerful thing. All action begins with awareness. It begins with knowledge. We tend to not act unless we are aware of there's a challenge that requires action. And testing is that catalyst. Now, knowing your HIV status, whether you're positive or negative, is critical information on actions that you need to take. Being aware of your own sexual health and your own sexual behavior will advise you that, I may be negative, but I know what I'm doing. And if I know what behaviors put me at risk for HIV, I can make adjustments, or maybe I don't make adjustments. I'm not, kind of judging folks one way or another, but I can make decisions and figure out ways to protect myself. PrEP is one of those ways. Using condoms is one of those ways. Abstinence. There's a whole toolbox of ways that you can protect yourself. It's not my job to decide what tools you pull out of your toolbox. The role that I've attempted to play is to make sure that you are aware that there is a toolbox, and maybe you're aware of where it is, and hopefully you're aware of what can be in that toolbox. If we give people those things, we dramatically increase the probability that we can protect people from HIV infection and keep people who are living with HIV healthy at the same time.
So, the elephant in the room with this conversation for decades now has been the role of the faith community. We know where we started back in the 80s and 90s. We know the advances that were made in some areas along the way. Tell me where you think we are right now in terms of the faith community's response to this challenge.
Well, when we met so many years ago, I was not going to give up on our faith community. That doesn't mean you don't hold people accountable. And what I can say today is that much of the stigma that was originally associated with HIV and AIDS has gone away. Now, there is the notion of the squeaky wheel. And so the challenge we have now is not that there's stigma, is that people think that the problem is over. So if it's not making a lot of noise, if we're not having those ugly photographs that we used to have in the early, we're good, right? Except people still are getting sick and people are still dying, and particularly in Black and brown and poor communities, it's the hidden diseases that do the most damage, and so one of the things that we need to continue to focus on is to celebrate and honor the advances we've made, in the faith community, because we've made some tremendous advantages in the faith community. There are a huge number of remarkable heroes in the faith community. A lot of them, right there where you are, and we see them all over the place. But for us to remind our faith communities that if nowhere else, we should know, the faith community should know that there are things that are hidden that you still need to pay attention to.
Yeah, absolutely. And this, of course, I'm happy to hear you say that, because that's the sense I get as well. Number one, on the stigma piece, but also in terms of the engagement. It feels like it's a different space that we're in right now. And a lot of that has been led by initiatives, as you're referencing, that we've been a part of in this community for many years, that you've been a part of. The Community Faith Gathering on AIDS that kind of focuses on pulling together both our faith community members and our legislators. Our mutual friend, Representative Laura Hall, of course, who's been out there in that fight for so long and leading those kinds of conversations. What would you say in terms of the issue of the legislative element of this? I know AMFAR works in that particular space. You work in that particular space. Where are we in terms of making progress in those areas? I know we've made progress, but have we made enough progress? And maybe enough is never enough, but where are we right now? Let me ask that question.
So what I would say is that right now, there is this national campaign to end AIDS. Now, whether that continues under the new administration or not, I have no idea. But I do think that is a focus because here's the deal. I am appreciative, and is not lost on me, that I am alive today because I have access to the best treatments available. But this is the other thing that I know. A few pills that work for some folks some of the time does not a cure make. Now, many of us made a commitment that we would stay in this fight until it's over. And over means that no matter who you are, no matter what your station in life is, no matter where you are, and this is something that should resonate very well in the faith community, that what happens to the least of us is important to all of us. And so as long as there are people in our communities that are at risk for HIV infection, as long as there are people in our communities, who need treatment that they can't get, then we have a job to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I am talking this afternoon with Phil Wilson. He's an internationally renowned HIV AIDS advocate and person who is certainly one who has led this battle and partnered with so many people over the years as a consequence of his advocacy. And we're so grateful for that. We're grateful to have him here this afternoon. Tell me a little bit about Artists and Activists for Health Equity, the sponsors of the annual Dance for Life Festival in Los Angeles. We have people listening in LA this afternoon, and we have people listening all over the nation and around the world. So tell us about what that initiative is.
So when I retired from the Black AIDS Institute, I knew that there was another chapter left. I knew that I had done my work in that space with that level of intensity. Now, I'm now 68 years old. Now, I'm not trying to be 20 or 30 or 40 or even 50. But so that means that my body and my mind and my attitude and my spirit works in different ways. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I've always been interested in is the relationship between the arts and public health and public policy, social determinants of health. And so we created, this multicultural, multi-genre dance festival in Los Angeles to marry, artists and activists together to come up with creative solutions to raise resources for small organizations. And so we do an annual dance festival. And that dance festival includes multicultural dancers and choreographers. It includes every genre of dance you can imagine. If you like classical ballet, it's there. If you like contemporary ballet, it's there. If you like modern, it's there. If you like hip hop, it's there. If you like tap, it's there. If you like Bollywood, it's there. If you like aerial performances, flying trapezes, they're all involved in the festival around the cause of continuing to raise awareness around HIV and AIDS and other health disparities in people of color communities, because HIV in 2024 doesn't happen in a vacuum, and people who are most at risk of HIV are also at risk for diabetes and hypertension and colon cancer. And so we're expanding the pot in a more exclusive way. And so that's what the Dance Festival is. We raise awareness, connect artists and activists, and raise a few dollars that we can support smaller organizations that don't have access to resources serving Black and brown people.
Yeah, listen, as I listen to you, I find it fascinating because the connection between the creative space of art that so many people experience oftentimes lends itself to opportunities to share information that's vital to the life, the quality of life, the health styles of people, and more, in very much the same way that a meal does. We have this, last week we had this big event called One Table. And so just this big table in a downtown park in Huntsville. It wasn't a Feed the Hungry program. It was a community engagement program. Just come and have a meal, share a meal. We're not going to check your card to see, what political affiliation you have or, what your socioeconomic status is. We're not going to check anything. We're all humans. We want to come together to solve a common issue. And I'm always in awe of the power that the creative arts have to bring us together to talk about these very, very critical issues that impact our lives. And so I would imagine there's got to be tremendous satisfaction in that effort.
No, absolutely. Art heals, and just like we feed our bodies with food and with drink, we have to feed our souls as well, particularly at a time that there is so much uncertainty in the world, and so much animus in the world, and finding ways where we can heal the pain. And art and dance and theater all help in those venues. And it provides me with an opportunity to have another chapter and to do work in a space that feeds a number of my passions. And so I'm very excited about it.
From the perspective of the Black community, we know that barbershops and hairstylists and others in that particular arena have played a critical role. I know some people who have initiatives like blood pressure screening in these areas, health conversations around offering free haircuts in parks and other kinds of things like that. I'm sure that there still continues to be a role for these very critical spaces, as well as fraternities and sororities.
Without a doubt. And you may remember that when we started the Black AIDS Institute, that's exactly was our model, to look at the institutions in Black communities and find ways that they can be engaged, to create an environment where you can get in where you fit in, and no one needs to do everything, but everybody can and must do something, and we all have a part to play, and we reach victory when each of us play our own part.
Yeah, absolutely. It is, of course, our special Thanksgiving holiday season program, and I think that gratitude is one of those underutilized elements of our life in terms of helping us really create some perspective in the midst of chaos, adversity, imbalance, and so much more. And I wonder what Phil Wilson is thankful for at this time, at this stage, at this phase of your life.
Well, I'm thankful that I'm still here, because I wasn't supposed to be here. So we can start there. But, I'm thankful that I still can contribute in a way that I hope and pray is helpful. I think service is really, really important. I am thankful that I have family and friends that love me and I love them and we support each other. I'm thankful that Kenny Anderson is still doing the amazing work that you're doing. We can do a whole show about all the reasons why I am thankful. And quite frankly, I think any one of your viewers, can talk about just being in touch with the reality of their lives. So the practice of leaning into gratitude, keep us moving in a positive and healthy direction. Yeah. I'm 68 now. I didn't expect to be 68. My father is 89 now, so he's 89 years young and doing extremely well. And so we're knocking on wood every single day and saying, now, how did this come to pass?
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything that AMFAR is doing right now that we need to know collectively with regards to any initiatives or any kinds of things that are going on that we might want to know about or be aware? I'm sure you're doing lots of things, I know, but anything in particular that you'd like to highlight in this moment?
Well, I think that the biggest thing that we're focusing on at AMFAR is our cure research. So what we do at AMFAR, we make investments in science, often bench science, to take risk, and to find out information that then goes on to support, many of the advances that are being made in the scientific field around HIV and AIDS, and also in the advocacy realm as well. So for example, the COVID-19 vaccine, many people don't realize that the COVID-19 vaccine, we were able to develop that vaccine as quickly as we were because of the bench science and the work that we had previously done in HIV and AIDS. So we repurposed our research mechanisms to say, let's turn our attention to COVID-19, and that helped expedite the process. And so now we're looking at our research and our research portfolio to look at a whole host of immune system health issues that might be responsive to some of the bench science that we've been working on for years.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And I think it's also important from the perspective of those listening this afternoon to make sure that you stay aware of these kinds of initiatives, what they're doing, how they're having an impact on our communities. Quality of life issues matter across the spectrum of life. And it's organizations like this that make an impact, and the impact that we're looking for It's 2024, Phil. We've come a long way in this epidemic and this disease, processing things, trying to understand things, researching things, treating things. Is there a time in your lifetime or beyond where you think that this conversation will be so radically different that we'll be basically talking about HIV/AIDS in the rearview mirror?
It is certainly something that we are working on and hoping on and praying for. I always say in that notion, and you've heard me say it as well, and that is the day will come when this pandemic will be over. That I am sure of. So the question is that who will we have been? Mm-hmm. And it's important for people to know that we were not cowards and monsters, that some of us dared to care in the face of it. Yeah. Some of us dared to fight because of it. Yeah. And some of us dared to love in spite of it. Because it is in the caring and the fighting and the loving that we get to the finish line. It is in the caring and the fighting and the loving that we remember our loved ones. It is in the caring, the fighting, and the love and the loving that as a people we live forever.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about all of that. And of course, I am thinking about something I saw many years ago that has stayed with me. It was a statement that basically said future generations will turn to you and ask, in the midst of this crisis, what did you do?
What did you do?
And that was, when I first read that, it was such a personal thing to me. I didn't look at it as, what did this company do? What did this organization do? Like, what did I do in terms of addressing this challenge that impacted my family in a very direct way, but impacted so many other people around me? I've lost lots of people to this disease in my lifetime, as I'm sure you have as well. And we have to be mindful of that, and we have to remember that in terms of how we move forward in that process. He's Phil Wilson. He's an internationally renowned HIV/AIDS advocate, educator. He's a trustee with AMFAR, the Foundation for AIDS Research, one of the world's leading nonprofit organizations dedicated to the support of AIDS research, HIV prevention, treatment, education, and advocacy, and he's so much more. Phil, you have graced me with your presence today. That's what I am thankful for. And if there is some way that people can learn more about AMFAR with a website or social media presence or something that you'd like to share for yourself, this is your opportunity to do that right now.
Well, we encourage people to certainly visit the AMFAR website. amfar.org is a really, really important place to get information. Also, places for donations. We're at the year-end giving season. I think that next week even is like Giving Tuesday or something like that. Yep. And it's important for us to put our money where our mouths are. There's this phrase about what faith without action is. And so it's important that we have faith, but we marry it to effective action.
Yeah, wow. That's a great way to wrap up this conversation with Phil Wilson. Phil, it's been a minute, but I hope it's not that much time before we get a chance to speak again. Great seeing you, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day and a great rest of the weekend.
Well, thank you so much. And my brother, anytime Kenny calls, I'm there.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you for real.
Take care.
All right, man.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Phil Wilson, folks, what an amazing interview that was. I was in awe myself, just listening at all of the many ways in which we were able to reflect on the journey, which has been a very long journey. Phil is an internationally renowned HIV/AIDS advocate and activist. He founded and was former president of and CEO of the Black AIDS Institute. He's moved on to AMFAR, the Foundation for AIDS Research, one of the world's leading nonprofit organizations dedicated to the support of AIDS research, HIV prevention, treatment education, and advocacy. And I did not say that since 1985, AMFAR has raised nearly $900 million in support of its programs and has awarded more than 3,800 grants to research teams worldwide. When we talk about one day we'll look in the rearview mirror and this pandemic will be over, that is more than just optimism because of those kinds of initiatives and investments. And I appreciate Phil joining us this afternoon. I'm going to come back in a moment with another one of my guests. It is a very special Thanksgiving Day weekend, and I'm glad that you've chosen to join us. I'm Kenny Anderson. I hope that you're having an amazing afternoon.
Why do we say praise 90.1 FM? Because the blessing is in the praise.
Jesus, I praise your name forever. Your works proclaim I'll serve you. Ain't no need to worry what the night is gonna bring. Don't you worry about it. It'll be all over in the morning.
There's a praise on the inside. I can't keep it to
Filling your day with songs of praise. We're Praise 90.1 FM.
Transforming lives.
Transforming lives.
You're listening to Second Chance with Kenneth Anderson.
Thank you once again to Phil Wilson, who was just an awesome guest this afternoon, internationally renowned HIV/AIDS advocate and educator, and so much more. We're just appreciative of the opportunity to be able to talk with him on this afternoon from his home base in Los Angeles, California. We were definitely appreciative of that. Today is, of course, World AIDS Day, December 1st each year, and the Black AIDS Institute does encourage you to include this invoking poem by Clarence R. Williams in your observances. The title is We Speak Your Name. For those who suffered in the quiet darkness, covered in shame, not knowing what had possessed their black bodies, a cancer, pneumonia, a virus, no name, no treatment, no chance, we speak your name. For those who refused the first drug of choice, AZT, opting for a homeopathic way, and lived in faith, we speak your name. For the women at the well who held the hands, gave the hug, served the healing soup, and heard the last words, we speak your name. For those who penetrated the clubs, bathhouses, parks, bars, balls, and crack houses, sharing condoms, prevention information, clean needles, and options, we speak your name. For those who would not stand down, joining allies to disrupt protests, insisting on resources for an invisible community, we speak your name. For those who made a way out of no way, rising up organizations to educate, inform, lobby, and save black lives, we speak your name. For those public figures who lent their celebrity railing against the status quo, advocating and demanding more from our government, we speak your name. For the mothers, in the name of love, who buried the rejected and abandoned sons of some other mother, we speak your name. For those who served the usher board, chair, deaconhood, tithing beyond 10%, but could not be eulogized in their home church, we speak your name. For those who left wounded from prophetic spaces to build liberation ministries of inclusiveness, driven by God's love and affirmation, we speak your name. For the church sisters who proclaim there's a balm in Gilead, demanding there be a health ministry and AIDS ministry in the church to dispense strong medicine, we speak your name. For those who refuse to be tested, battered by stigma, living freely, reckless, cloaked in fear and denial, we speak your name. For those who consumed of their youth, getting tested and never returning for treatment, we speak your name. For those who danced about it, sang about it, painted it, photographed it, filmed it, and wrote about it, HIV/AIDS, without apology, we speak your name. For those who graduated from AZT to 30 pills to 14 pills to 4 to 2 to 1, and now an occasional injection, partnering with PrEP and PEP and live to talk about it, we speak your name. For those who continue to fight, shining a light on reality that black bodies represent the largest account of new infections in this current season, we speak your name. For those with war-torn clothes, tattered with badges of trauma, and unexpressed grief, walking boldly towards a new dawn of hope, hoping for a cure, a vaccination, a world without HIV/AIDS, we speak your name. Mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, cousins, teachers, preachers, doctors, nurses, lawyers, clerks, salesmen, janitors, flight attendants, union leaders, military officers, counselors, scientists, accountants, mechanics, designers, engineers, rappers, actors, singers, publicists, stylists, news anchors, the countless faceless black bodies who lost their fight. We speak your name. We speak your name. We speak your name. It was written by Clarence R. Williams, and we share that with you today in honor of the 2024 World AIDS Day commemoration. This is a commemoration that comes around every year on this particular day. And it's a day to do so much in terms of acknowledging and remembering those who have been impacted by the journey. And of course, we want to let you know that as we talk about World AIDS Day, as we think about World AIDS Day, there is a lot to be grateful for, and there's a lot to be thankful for. It is said that the world can end AIDS if everyone's rights are protected. With human rights at the center, with communities in the lead, the world can end AIDS as a public health threat by 2030. On December 1st, the World Health Organization joins partners and communities to commemorate World AIDS Day 2024 under the theme, Take the Rights Path, My Health, My Right. The World Health Organization is calling on global leaders and citizens to champion the right to health by addressing the inequalities that hinder progress in ending AIDS. On December 1st, they speak up for health equity, and they want to help ensure that everyone, everywhere, has the right to quality health care services in the fight against HIV/AIDS. And it is so important as we talk about this subject and as we talk about this particular topic, and we think about the ways in which this particular disease has impacted so many people's lives, that we have an opportunity to highlight it and emphasize it through the work that we're doing on this radio broadcast that I've done for so many years since I lost my sister back in 1988 to this disease. The years don't dull the memories, that's for sure. The years don't dull the loss. I think what the years do is the years put those things into context. And as I have worked and labored and invested my own life in working to educate people about this disease, to advocate for testing for all to the extent that as many people as possible who can be tested should be tested, even if it's nothing more than to set an example for someone else to know your status is perhaps the most secure way to confront this disease and this epidemic. And if more people would do that, I believe more things would happen in a very positive and productive way. We're also asking in this particular context that the world, as we gather for this commemorative moment, of World AIDS Day, that this event serves as an important reminder that we remain steadfast in our commitment to prevent new infections and provide essential services to all people. And on this particular commemorative moment, we're looking at a theme called Collective Action, Sustain and Accelerate HIV Progress. In other words, we're looking at ways that we can drive this information into the hands of people so that they can make informed, consistent decisions about their lives and about their health. This is something that we can definitely make available and possible, and this is something that we can definitely provide for you in terms of making sure that we have the opportunity and ability to be able to share this information across the spectrum of our lives. I'm doing something here right now, actually, real quick, because it is necessary and essential that I do it. Just bear with me for a moment while I provide this information that I am attempting to provide. in this moment. And this will actually help me do what I need to do and help us move along and forward in the process. I hope that you've been enjoying the Thanksgiving Day weekend, and I hope that you have been enjoying the information that we have been sharing on the broadcast, and I hope that you have been in the process of hearing and understanding more about things that matter to all of us in our lives. And of course, this is just another way that we can make that possible. I'm going to, I was anticipating seeing my next guest on the screen at this moment, and I believe that he is about to log on in just a moment. And if he does, I'll go ahead and introduce him. If he doesn't, then we'll wait for him to log on, and I will play a song or something in the meantime so that we can be ready for him when he comes on at this time. In fact, why don't I just go ahead and do that? And then we will come back in just a moment with more of the broadcast. I'm Kenny Anderson. It's Second Chance. I hope that you're having a good afternoon.
Let the words of my mouth bring you praise. Let the words that I speak be seasoned with your love and grace. May the things, O Lord, that I choose to say glory, not shame, to your name each day. Let the words of my mouth bring you praise. Let them bring you praise.
Welcome back to the broadcast. That short transitional moment gave me an opportunity to do what I'm about to do right now. My next guest is Dr. Yahuwah Williams, Distinguished University Chair, Professor of History, Founding Director of the Racial Justice Initiative at the University of St. Thomas, and author of a bunch of books. We're just going to jump right in right now because we can spend lots of time talking about his accomplishments, but I want to talk to him because he's here. Dr. Williams, what's going on, man?
It is so good to see you, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I've been looking forward to this conversation and this opportunity because this just enhances and enriches my big Thanksgiving weekend program. And I hope that you have had a good Thanksgiving holiday, and that as we go into this phase on this weekend and anticipate on this World AIDS Day, actually, December 1st, that we have a wonderful opportunity to chat it up with you a bit. I hope that everything has been going well with you, but as I said, let's not waste any time. Let's dive right in. There was a big election that took place recently. I'm sure that you're aware of it. And I'm sure you've thought a lot about it, as so many people have thought a lot about it. Talk to me a little bit, Dr. Williams, about what are your perspectives on the reelection of Donald Trump and some might even say the defeat of Kamala Harris?
It's such a great question, Kenny. I think we're in a moment. You know, I remember back in 2008 when Obama won, and there was this concern, articulation of us being post-racial, and we saw how that turned out. Immediately, we saw the Obama administration dealing with what we eventually would become the Black Lives Matter movement. You know, this kind of backlash against the election of the nation's first Black president, and the inability really, not just to the Obama administration, but the Democratic Party, to understand the significance of the Tea Party and what that represented, how crazy that made these individuals who ultimately built a political movement that now has moved us in a moment where we're post-truth. And that's scary. Like literally, we saw an individual run for the presidency of the United States and actively lie to pursue that office. We saw his second, his lieutenant, J.D. Vance, in a debate say, we are willing to tell untruths. If the end result is winning the presidency, then that's okay. And they won. So I think we all need to be concerned in this moment about what this represents in terms of our democracy and democratic institutions. There were a lot of people who are willing in this moment to say what they said when Trump won the first time. Give him a chance. these, for example, cabinet choices are avatars, right? They're really, we shouldn't be concerned. I actually think that he learned a lot in the last time he had the reins of power, and we should be very concerned this time because I think that the damage done this time around will be far greater.
Let me ask you about those cabinet picks that appear to be so curious to some, and lots of people have, of course, engaged in conversation about what's going on. It seems to me to be more than just a notion that it's happening that way. And it also seems to me that a message is being sent as a consequence of these very specific choices that are being made, where in many instances people said Marco Rubio is the most sane choice that's been made thus far in this process, and think that if you can go that far, that's a bit of a stretch compared to what's behind that. What are your general thoughts about this in terms of, is there a message being sent, or is there a method to this madness?
I think both. I'm of the opinion, for example, that I don't think he ever anticipated getting Matt Gaetz through, but I think the point was shock and awe, deflect attention. I think also when we think about somebody like a Linda McMahon for Secretary of Education, we know that he's hostile to the Department of Education. That Project 2025 talked about the dismantling of the Department of Education. So he's appointing people with very little experience because what they'll do is basically preside over the dismantling of those institutions. And then last but not least is kind of an interesting perspective on this, that these folks are mascots. Other than Marco Rubio, everyone that he's nominated, from Tulsi Gabbard on down, Dr. Oz, are mascots. They don't have the experience. There are already significant questions about their qualifications. And so they become a grand distraction that then allows the work that we know that he and Elon Musk and others share, this idea that they are really going to gut the federal government. And I think we all should be concerned about that from that standpoint. If it's madness, it is evil genius more than it is true madness.
4 years from now is a little bit hard for many people to think about. Of course, there's going to be an election in 2 years that may have some consequences on the national landscape and even the local landscape in terms of federal and statewide legislation. Can we imagine for a moment a 4-year cycle in which the people that are being selected are put at the helms of these offices and departments and directed to do various things? I mean, you think about Department of Defense, you think about the juxtaposition of international conflicts and crises and challenges that are being faced, and what this could potentially portend for the United States in 4 years from now, what we might look like. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I'm deeply concerned, brother, for a couple of reasons. I think, in terms of foreign policy and our allies, there's clearly a message that's being sent. Could you sit across, for example, from any of the people that he suggested or nominated for national security posts or high-level posts within the Foreign Service and assume that they're honest brokers, or they're representing American interests, or are they representing Donald Trump's interests, or are they representing their own interests? There are a lot of people who will feel like rogue actors, even if they buy into some larger kind of Trump agenda, because we know from the stances that they've taken previously that they kind of operate like that. And I think the other problem that we have is that we know that Trump is not above removing people whom he has conflict with. We saw that with the previous attorney general and how that played out with Jeff Sessions and Donald Trump. This time he'll take no prisoners. So I think we have to be concerned again in the realm of foreign policy if Donald Trump is calling the shots. And I think this is true across the board. You just mentioned World AIDS Day, and we have to be concerned about healthcare. Somebody like RFK Jr. in there who is anti-vaccine and so on and so forth. These individuals are only as durable as the leash that they're extended by the president. And we already know he's crazy. So, you slip into the vernacular because it's really the only thing that you can say to kind of express the worry that we should all have, not only about these actors unleashed, who are kind of, with no portfolio, no agenda, and kind of no grand plan other than to wreak havoc. And then an individual in Donald Trump who obviously shares that. And, we saw tremendous damage done last time. I think about some of the things that he said on the campaign trail that people made light of. You'll never have to vote again. Now, again, post-election, there were those who argued that Kamala Harris in the Harrison Walz campaign spent too much time talking about the threat to democracy, not in a woman's right to choose, not enough time talking about kitchen table issues such as the price of butter, so on and so forth. I disagree. I didn't hear Trump talk about those issues in an effective way. And it's not because I'm at some elite institution in the Midwest divorced from the pain of working class people. I think that we've seen the Democrats seeded the narrative. And over the next 4 years, unless they figure out how to reconstruct that narrative and rebuild this Democratic coalition, they find themselves now in a position the Republicans found themselves in 2008, when they were trying to figure out what that Obama coalition meant. And then basically the Tea Party helped to realign that in a way that spoke to, Joe Rogan listeners, people who adore Hulk Hogan, right? The cultural icons that the Trump administration rolled out tell you everything about the base that he went after and who we need to talk to if we need to bring folks back into the fold and what they fear. And I think that's important too.
Yeah, I know you're familiar by now with the comments and the attention being given to Reverend Dr. William Barber and the things that he said about how we realign this process. I just want to quote something that he said recently in discussing what people are defining as a blueprint for how Democrats reengage in elections, that based on the work that he's done on the ground in North Carolina and elsewhere, through a process that he calls fusion politics, a multiracial and multi-class coalition that transcends the conservative versus progressive binary. Racism is often depicted as a black problem, but Barber insists it's also been used throughout U.S. history to hurt the economic interests of everyday white people who consistently vote against their interest. Your thoughts about that?
First of all, Reverend Barber is a bad boy. I love him to death. But we need moral Mondays in a way. And the fusion politics he's talking about, I think, worry me in this moment. Because when you see, for example, organized labor voting in the way that it presumably did to support a Donald Trump, when, for example, you have these cultural issues that are allowed to morph into, people voting against, as you said, and as Reverend Barber talked about, their own interests. It's one of these moments where how do you resolder that connection between an identification with a politics that speaks to the working class, that doesn't allow for a Donald Trump to come in and with a faux populism, sell people on the idea that your problems are over here. It's like Star Wars, these are not your droids. In middle America, I mean, there's the erosion of certain institutions, Kenny, and I'm happy to talk about this on your show in particular. There was a time when local news and radio are places where people could go and get their news and be engaged with others. There was a public square. There was a diversity of voices. We talk about diversity as a strength. When I think about how we've eradicated local media and now all you really have are the national media, and I think about people who are sitting out in these remote areas and having Fox beamed in and, kind of shock radio, far right radio beamed in at all times. Unless we figure out how to undo that, the fusion politics that Reverend Barber talks about, which I think are very important, how do you deliver that to the people? Because there's no public square anymore. Now, is it the internet? People said Kamala Harris made a tactical error by not going on Joe Rogan, right? I kind of understand why she didn't do that. It's kind of hostile territory. But maybe it will require going into the belly of the beast in that way in order to deliver a message about a fusion politics that will appeal. Otherwise, we're so polarized. I don't know in our contemporary moment how you deliver that message. Dr. King, 1963, Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the March on Washington movement. They've got a platform. They capture the attention of the nation. All three networks, there were only three at that time, cover it. The National Press Corps, try doing that today. You only have MSNBC, and oh, by the way, you may not get them because Joe Amico went down to Mar-a-Lago. So the reality is you may only have CNN covering that, and they'll have, three pundits sitting at the table who are constantly telling you, this is not what we should be concerned about. The president won and has a mandate, so on and so forth. So I think Reverend Barber's right. I think the solution is right. I think the remedy is right. How you orchestrate that in our contemporary moment, I think, is also part of the problem. With artificial intelligence, with the predominance of social media, and with the erosion of what we knew as the public square.
Yeah, powerful indeed. I've asked this question. It's not a trick question at all. It's just a question for thought, because I'm one of those that glass half full, half empty people. Is there an upside to the Trump nomination?
You know,
the last person I asked that question kind of started off the same way too.
It's a brilliant question, and I think one we grapple with, because sometimes it just has to. I'll give you a perfect example, Kenny. I once heard someone say, and it pained me immensely to hear them talk about the murder of Emmett Till in this way. The person said, I once heard Mamie Till refer to her son as the sacrificial lamb for the movement, because once that happened, there was no way that good people could ever go back. It's like they saw the beast for what it was, and then they were willing to take action in a way that, it made it painfully evident what you were up against. In that sense, and I don't think that I don't think we've reached absolute zero, because if January 6th didn't do it, and you reelected the guy, the question is what is. But I think we're closer to that bottom that then would hopefully help people recalibrate and say, wait a minute, this is not what I signed up for. Will it be, for example, when they start the mass deportations? Will it be the next police killing, which we know is inevitable, where, he basically says support our cops, and no consent decree in Minneapolis, and no consent, what will it be? What will it take? Or will it be a collection of things that then help to build that coalition that Reverend Barber is talking about, that fusion, because again, to credit to the Trump team here, Latinos, there was this push coming out of the media that somehow the comments that the comedian made at Madison Square Garden were going to result in Latinos voting against Trump, and they didn't. They said, well, actually, number one, he didn't say it, and number two, we can laugh at ourselves, but so you've got to figure out a way, or we have to figure out a way to see the opportunity in when it gets real. The famous saying, when they came for the trade unionists, I didn't worry because I wasn't a trade unionist. We have to find a way to say, hey, look, he's coming for you. This is coming for you. And this isn't the time to kind of retreat. This is the time to really engage and try to make those connections in meaningful ways. It's what our brother, John Lewis, wrote about in his final letter to the American people, published posthumously in 2020 in the midst of the George Floyd protests, where he says, look, together we have the power to redeem the soul of America by getting in good trouble, necessary trouble. Now, everybody, Kenny, I know focused on the good trouble, necessary trouble. They didn't hear the other three parts of that Lewis doctrine. He said, we do that, getting that good trouble, necessary trouble, number one, by having a respect for the vote as the most important nonviolent change agent in a democratic society. He said, you need to use it because you can lose it. Secondly, he says we have to study the past, because we have to understand that people have been involved in this existential struggle for a very long time. This isn't the first time that we've been to the brink as a civilization, and it won't be the last. So people have to learn from that. And last, he says we have to build a global kinship. Like, part of that is not just looking internally at the history of the United States. It's looking at global history and saying, when people said this dude's kind of like Adolf Hitler, and this feels like, Germany on the eve of the Third Reich and the rise of the Third Reich, read Mein Kampf, right? There's some Mein Kampf and Project 2025 have a lot in common, right? In terms of them being a blueprint that then became the foundation for a political administration that wrought evil in the world. So there's something to be said for thinking about it in that terms, and maybe there's an opportunity in all that. And all that negativity, maybe there's an opportunity to build something durable and meaningful and hopeful and transformative.
So one of the things that I have appreciated about our relationship is that there's a growing appreciation for myself for the meaning of certain words. So I'm going to use the word proximity. My proximity to you has deepened my appreciation for some of the work that you've done and some of the ongoing work that has to be done. So I'm calling through your feed on LinkedIn, and I see where you spent time at ComCon in New York. And I'm like, ComCon, what's the connection to this with Dr. Williams? And I mean, that was amazing, because I'm this comic guy anyway. And then, I'm this social justice guy. And I'm like, you're just so much more than just Dr. Uhuru Williams. And you got to tell us about that connection. Talking about reflecting on the past, I just had no idea, and I confess. But what a amazing venue and opportunity to be able to revisit this very significant point in time. Tell us about that.
So, the thing that was phenomenal about that is I've done some work, and the person that actually got me into that was John Lewis. So John Lewis had been working with the city of New York on developing a series of comic books for New York City school children as a means of helping to build literacy, but also help them to understand their duty as members of a participatory democracy, kind of civic engagement. And one of the stories he told us how he was actually activated by a comic book, the Fellowship of Reconciliation, in the aftermath of the Montgomery bus boycott, put out a comic book to let young people know what Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks and others had done in Montgomery to actually bring segregation, at least in public transportation, to an end in that city. And he said, I understand those images were powerful. Those comics kind of awakened me. He wrote Dr. King a letter as a result, and Dr. King invited him down, and the rest, as we know, is history. So we're kind of doing that work, and I've done a couple of comics with New York City as a result. But what was interesting about Comic-Con is they called up and they said, hey, Doc, are you going to be in town? We're going to do this panel at Comic-Con. Now, this was a week before the Madison Square Garden event with Trump. I said, I'd be happy to. And what I chose to talk about was Fantastic Four issue from December of 1963. And I commend your listeners to kind of take a look at that. But it was called The Hate Monger. And it introduced this super villain for the Fantastic Four, who was based on the Ku Klux Klan. And it takes place with a Fantastic Four walking through Manhattan, and they come across this guy who's having a rally. And he's saying, those who are not for us are against us. Get rid of the foreigners. I mean, it was eerie. So, Kenny, when I say that, when I shared that with those teachers, and a week later, and the participants at Comic-Con, and then a week later, what happened at the Madison Square Garden happened, it was my chance of sharing with people what we've been talking about today. History doesn't repeat itself, it echoes. And the echoes are damning. So it's an opportunity for us to understand John Lewis. Again, we've been involved in his existential struggle for a long time. In 1963, Marvel couldn't take aim at the real enemy, which is the Ku Klux Klan. Marvel is disgusted by the murder of 4 little girls in the aftermath of the March on Washington in 1963, where you have those infamous, but it wasn't just the murder of those 4 little girls, it was the situation in Birmingham 6 months before. And even though that issue comes out just a month after the assassination of John F. Kennedy, and many people thought it was in proximity to that, the reality is those issues are written months before. They were commenting on the hate monger as the Ku Klux Klan. Long way of saying, I'm always looking for ways to get people to appreciate that kind of deeper text. And, like John Lewis, kind of think about, young people is where it's at. Kenny, you and I talk about this all the time. And by the way, my wife gave me a hard time. She said, you're going on Kenny's show and you're not dressing up because you're gonna hurt yourself. You always are sharp. But we talked about it. It's why I made that shift to writing children's literature now. Like, my colleague Michael Long and I write for middle grades. It's the next generation. Like I've kind of lost or gained an appreciation for what John Lewis was trying to download, which is think about the next generation and invest in them.
Mm-hmm. Listen, that is so powerful. And I know lots of people on the radio broadcast this afternoon who may be listening may not be aware of that. But I think it's such an important way that we need to revisit the way we have these kinds of conversations, because we are at crossroads in terms of so many things in our nation today, and we've got to have important conversations. The final thing I want to ask you about, it is the Thanksgiving holiday season, and I'm really hooked on this word gratitude. It's just something I really spend a lot of time thinking about throughout my day and at various moments, and very intentionally thinking about it and strategically thinking about it. Talk to me a little bit about the role of gratitude in a society filled with chaos and adversity and confusion.
Wow, Kenny, that is, it's a beautiful sentiment, primarily because when we think about the word gratitude in particular, and I learned this much later in life. Had I known this in my 20s and 30s, I might have had a easier go. A big part of gratitude is grace and really appreciating those small moments, the micro. I look forward to talking to you today. I'm enjoying this moment, and taking the time to appreciate the moments then helps to create hope and resilience and gets us through the hard parts, like the rough stuff. I think now in a hyper-polarized world where there's so much anxiety and fear about what is to come, being in the moment and really being appreciative for the now. Every embrace counts, every opportunity to share kinship with those that you, or fellowship with those that you appreciate, that you cherish, count. But then also storing some of that and using it to fight later on, because we know, and again, I go back to, I love the civil rights leaders for this reason, but it's a long, ugly fight that we have ahead. And so these moments of grace, of solitude, of appreciation will not only help fuel us going forward, they help us focus on what it is that we fight for. The normality that we can feel in those moments, sharing a meal, being very clear about what matters and who matters and how we show up for them, and why we need to show up in spaces that we might be uncomfortable, and why we need to run for school board, and why we need to push. All those things, I think, come down to those moments where we can really kind of focus in and be grateful for those moments.
Wow. The micro moments, I just, that just resonated with me so much, because there are days and moments when I literally just sort of stop things in that moment. I was coming home earlier this week and ran into a grocery store real quick. And I just need to pick up a couple of quick things. I was a little bit on a timeline, but I ran into a childhood friend. And when I say childhood, I have to put it in context, because I didn't grow up in Huntsville. I grew up on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. And this wasn't just a childhood friend that I went to school with. This was a childhood friend who grew up with me in the projects on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, in the same community. We worshiped together as a family. We spent time having fun together as families. And when Owen there was a presence there for a moment while I'm rushing through my day. Owen showed up. I had to spend time with him. It didn't matter what was coming next. I didn't have anything that I had to be at. And I am grateful for the mindfulness to embrace those moments. Brother, I'm going to too many funerals. I'm getting too many announcements. It's just happening in a relentless manner. And I don't want to be in a situation where it's like, if I just if I just taken the time, if I just made that phone call, sent that text, whatever we have to do, now is the time to do it. And I think that that's what is helping me through these very difficult, challenging times. Don't wait. Do it now. He's Dr. Uhuru Williams. He is, I'm a little bit, wow. I wish I could have him on the show more often, but I'm very respectful of his very busy schedule.
I don't say no to you. And besides, every time I come on, I get a fashion tip. I'm getting that tie.
Listen, man, however I can support, I'm happy to support. But he is the Distinguished University Chair, Professor of History, Founding Director of the Racial Justice Initiative at the University of St. Thomas. He's an author of many books. In fact, one of my favorites is, of course, they call him Jack, the story of Jackie Robinson. And I want to bring you on one show just to talk about Jackie Robinson.
That'd be fun.
That's my guy. That's my favorite number. The day I do it, I'm going to rock the jersey. I'm a big New York Yankees fan. I got a chance to see the Yankees win the only game that they won during the World Series just a few weeks ago while I was in Yankee Stadium. When I got home and experienced the defeat of the Los Angeles Dodgers, out of respect to that incredible victory, I rocked a Los Angeles Dodgers jersey. And people was like, what's wrong? Aren't you a Yankees fan? I checked the number. It's 42. Respect. So we're going to talk about Jackie Robinson, brother. It's always good to talk to you.
We should do it on JR Day. That would be great, Jackie Robinson Day. And next time you're in New York, you better look me up, brother. I appreciate you.
It's going to happen.
Awesome.
All right, man. Take care of yourself. Alexandra, my regards.
I'll tell you, say hi.
All right.
Bye.
I'm going to what a great conversation, by the way, folks. I'm going to transition right into my next conversation. She's been waiting patiently, and I appreciate that. She is Tabitha Jefferson, but I'm only here to talk to her because of another part of what consumes her life, And I'm so happy to be able to have this opportunity today. I was in Big Spring Park East earlier this year in September, and I was setting up at the time that most people are just only thinking about we're coming down to Jazz in the Park. So it's like real early in the day, and people out in the park running and walking, and sometimes even walking their dogs. And a couple of dogs come up on the scene. And they were the most playful dogs, and they were fun-loving. And, and I took some pictures with them. And I learned more than I ever could have imagined about these amazing dogs. They're Barkley and Bama, unforgettable English bulldogs, social media influencers as a duo that bring laughter and joy to many animal lovers worldwide via Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Their pure personality wrapped in wrinkles. They're known for their never-ending wrestling techniques, clever shenanigans, showing love to their community, and simply being two spoiled boss bulldogs. That's what they are, that rule the roost. And I will say that Barkley is 2 years old. Bama is 8 months old. And together they have over 900,000 followers. Tabitha, how you doing this afternoon?
I am doing good. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Where are my boys?
They are outside playing in the backyard.
I got to tell you, those are two of my favorite. I don't know if they can make a little cameo appearance before we finish, but that would be awesome. But listen, these two have just captured my heart. And I know I'm late in the game because, I'm 900,000 followers. Where have I been?
I don't know.
And these guys are right here. And then, I'm seeing a post and they're checking out Jazz in the Park and the people hanging out in the park. I said, these are my guys. They're definitely a part of the landscape. But let's just tell people the story of where this all begins, because these are two of the most fun-loving, playful, as you said, full of life and shenanigans and more. The story that's told every day on social media is just something that is endearing and something that you can't really stop. I can't stop watching it. And I'm going to tell you my favorite video in just a little while. But tell us all about Barkley and Bama.
Well, they're two of a kind. They're known across the world for their endless shenanigans, their mischief. They're something else. I wanted to originally bring awareness to the English Bulldog breed, because a lot of people really didn't know, really much about that breed. They had only seen them on social media or in pictures and things like that, and they just told me they never knew much about that breed. So I kind of highlighted that for people.
Yeah.
And I wanted to bring awareness to the Black community. I wanted to defy the social the stereotype, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
That negative stereotype that, most Blacks are scared of dogs and that we're uninterested, basically.
Yeah. So Barkley is two. Barkley is the boss of the two bosses. And then Bama's 8 months. Did you have English Bulldogs before? Was this something intentionally that you said, I'm going to start with this and then start creating the brand from there?
No, actually what happened was Barkley, they're not my first Bulldog. I had one before and he passed away. But what happened was I used to be a caregiver. I was in the healthcare field. And when I got Barkley, I would bring him to, throughout the community, just showing off my dog. No big thing. I wasn't trying to, do anything. I was just bringing him to some of my clients and bringing him throughout the community because I'm a big animal lover.
Yeah.
And you know what? I saw the impact that he had on people's mental health. And I'm big on mental health. And I just saw people light up. I saw people, say they have never seen those colors in a bulldog. And they would say, Tabitha, we've never seen a fat bulldog. And so I said, well, you know what? I want to share my life with the world. I want to show people, my everyday life and how much they bring me joy and how much they're good for my mental health.
Yeah.
Because I saw they were just doing so much in the community. And I said, well, you know what? I'm going to stick a camera in Barkley's face. and then the rest was history. And then once I put a camera in his face to really highlight his personality, Kenny, I would get messages from so many people telling me how my videos impacted them.
Wow.
How much it was so good for their mental health, and how they were struggling with anxiety and depression and things like that. And they were just kind of like, I guess cheer me on. Thank you for showing this. They would say, we don't see this in the Black community much.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? I'm going to show their personality. And Barkley's personality got stranger and stranger. His antics. And so here we are, another 2 bulldogs and social media.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm in love with them, and those are my boys, just like they're 900,000 other people's boys, and you own them, of course, so they're your boys.
Yeah.
A day doesn't get by without Barkley and Bama fighting each other, or chewing on a shoe, or fighting over some toy, or kind of bossing and pushing each other around. Yeah, a day never fails when something like that happens. But here's my favorite video thus far, because I know there are going to be many more. But it's the video of Bama swimming, getting a swimming lesson. And I guess Barkley's already had his swimming lesson. And and so the trainer brings Bama out of the water. And Barkley comes back in and tries to take over the process. You can hear your voice in the background saying, Barkley, how you going to do that? And what's interesting about it, what's so interesting to me about the video, it begins with Bama just having the time of his life.
Right.
I mean, he looks at grandmom, and he's doing this thing. He's like looking for her affirmation and approval, and the trainer's just, having it. And then he comes out the water, his trainer's petting on him, and all of a sudden Barkley comes and says, yo, this is my world.
Right. He wants to control everything.
Man, that is the funniest video to me. And as many times as it comes up, I look at it again because it is amazing. And what is the experience, not of just owning them and not of just the goodwill and the good spirit that they bring to other people? What is it like to own them?
Never ending shenanigans. I'm always having it's like I have my own reality show right at home. You know what I mean? It's a real live reality show at home. Bama is my mischief maker. He's the instigator. Mm-hmm. So he gets Barkley going. Barkley's used to being an only child. So when you bring Bama in the mix, it's like, I'm here too, Barkley,
Yeah. Yeah.
So what we have a fight to see who's going to be alpha.
Yeah.
Yeah. Barkley's alpha, but Bama also wants to be alpha.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it's so many benefits. I mean, I got unconditional love, of course.
Mm-hmm.
You can't forget that they love me unconditionally. and I love them. It's like a WWE wrestling match, as you can see, every day. I look at them and they learn new techniques every day.
Yeah.
Barkley is infamous for his headlock. Yes, he's infamous for his headlock. Those who know. They have over 100 toys, but yet they tussle over one yellow chicken. One yellow chicken. I mean, it's pure entertainment. It's pure entertainment, and I love them, and I just can't see my life without them,
Yeah, well, listen, it's pure entertainment for us, too, and that reminds me, in addition to the headlock stuff, it reminds me of the watermelon snatching.
Hey, yes, Kenny.
I'm like, I feel so bad for Bama. I'm like, can't Bama just get a little watermelon without Barkley snatching the watermelon?
He was taking too long for Barkley. He didn't know how to do it right. Bama was trying to savor the flavor and just kind of, lick it.
Yeah.
Barkley was like, boy, let me show you how to eat this watermelon. Chomp. It shocked me. I'm like, what are you doing? I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah. I mean, I have seen some videos, and I see them every day, actually, and I'm just liking and loving, and I'm doing everything I can, commenting at times because it is just so much fun seeing those guys and the joys you said that they bring to people's lives. Some of the videos I've seen, you know, of them at Mid-City, I've seen them in different parks and areas. That people come up to them, they like to take pictures with them. They certainly like to rub on them, and that's got to be kind of a cool feeling too.
It is. It's my part. It's my way of doing community service.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's my way of kind of giving back. And
Yeah.
so when I bring them out, you know, just for the community to love on them and see them, and the children and parents, you know, they line up to take pictures.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good feeling because they're so happy, and they've already watched. The families watched the video, so when they see them in person, it's like, that's my guy, you know. So I mean, it's like I'm building a community, basically.
Yeah.
I'm building a community all through social media of animal lovers, you know.
Right.
And, yeah, people want to laugh and people want to be tickled, you know.
Yeah.
They want to get rid of the everyday stresses of life.
Yeah.
So it's a healthy distraction.
Yeah, no, you're right. It is a great filter because all you do is you log on and that that video comes up and it's like, oh, what are these guys up to now?
That's what they say. What are they doing now? Let me check in on my nephews.
So recently I saw where they were doing you guys are doing some Christmas shopping with them for some new outfits. And I noticed a video with them on their new outfits for Christmas, walking around the pond at Big Spring look like. And I mean, they just look like they have the best time regardless of what's going on. And they are always creating, like you said, those moments and opportunities for people. There are people out there listening right now who we've talked a lot about Barkley and Bama and the joy that they've brought to people's lives, 900,000 plus followers and supporters. You all, of course, are the owners of these beautiful dogs, and they're like people, actually. I mean, they just run up on you, and you just can't help but rub on them and get close to them and love on them. How would people find them online?
Well, you can follow us on all platforms. We're new to YouTube also. So that's our news platform. But you can find them on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok under Barkley the Bulldog.
Barkley the Bulldog.
Barkley the Bulldog. I still have it under Barkley the Bulldog. People are wanting me to add Bama's name to it, but I don't want to confuse everybody. So Barkley the Bulldog is what you look for.
Look, if you get Barkley, you're going to get Bama.
You're going to get them.
So just live with Barkley the Bulldog. That's what it is.
Right.
And I would strongly encourage, I hope people are actually jumping over there right now, checking it out. Don't just check it out, like it, folks. Follow their shenanigans because they're absolutely shenanigans. And I can only imagine from now, Thanksgiving weekend until Christmas, all the fun that's going to be a part of it because they're going to be showing up and making guest appearances at different places. And you're going to be the fortunate one if you happen to run into Barkley and Bama somewhere in town. They're outside right now, so we can't actually see them. But boy, that would be awesome. Maybe the next time we talk, we'll have a Barkley Bama appearance. They're the cutest little bulldogs.
Yes, most definitely. Most definitely.
Again, Barkley the Bulldog on all social media platforms.
All social media.
And you're now on YouTube. So that should be a lot of fun, actually.
It is, because I found that a lot of older people, they would tell me, "Hey Tab, we love you, but some of them don't do TikTok."
Yeah.
And they say, "Well, we don't do Instagram. Can you please jump on YouTube?" And I said, "Okay, I didn't plan to get on all these platforms, but I made it accessible for everyone to enjoy."
Yeah.
So, hey, now we're on YouTube, and so the community is growing. I feel blessed for this opportunity. I feel like I actually have a purpose.
Yeah.
I have a purpose God put in my path, and so I'm doing this work.
Yeah, well, listen, I love the direction, too, your focus on health and mental health and the fact that it just brightens up so many people's lives and the connectivity and the energy that comes from just being engaged with Barkley and Bama is amazing. They're Barkley and Bama, English Bulldogs, social media influencers. Yes. And if you see one, you're going to see the other. They are making people's lives a joy these days on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and hopefully you'll run into them between now and the Christmas season. Out and about. I know they'll be dressed up and doing all. They had some fun Halloween pictures, by the way.
You liked it?
Yeah.
I call them pound puppies. You know, that's their nickname, pound puppies. So I had them dressed up as, you know, like they went to the penitentiary. The pound. And social media just loved it. They loved it.
It was awesome. It was awesome. I tell you, I got to get my Barkley Bama fix after the show goes off, and I won't cheat, so I'll pay attention, but I got to get my fix once the show is over. Tabitha Jefferson, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for sharing the love that you have for your English Bulldogs, Barkley and Bama. We look forward to seeing them soon. Again, folks, check out Barkley, the Bulldog. You will not regret it. In fact, you'll probably thank me once you do it. And you'll certainly thank Tabitha. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Have a good day.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. We, of course, are having an awesome Thanksgiving weekend broadcast, folks. I'm going to come back in just a moment and tell you about what's going on next week. I'm Kenny Anderson. It's Second Chance, and I hope you're having a great day.
Perhaps you have some ideas, comments, or suggestions that you would like to share. Or perhaps you'd like to be a guest on the broadcast. We'd love to hear from you. Please feel free to email Kenny Anderson at mxlife@aol.com, or you can like us on the Second Chance Facebook page. That's 2ND Chance. And now, back to more of Second Chance with Kenny Anderson.
Oh, what a great show today, folks. J.D. Blair, the Groove Regulator, kicking things off with us. Phil Wilson, HIV/AIDS, internationally renowned HIV/AIDS advocate. And we're just appreciative to have him. Dr. Uhuru Williams, who is distinguished university chair, professor of history, founding director of the Racial Justice Initiative at University of St. Thomas. And, of course, Tabitha Jefferson talking about those two beautiful English Bulldogs, Barkley and Bama. We hope that you'll definitely check them out at Barkley the Bulldog on social media. You will absolutely love it. On next week, my broadcast will feature conversations with Christopher Sledge, who is starting a brand new credit union, a Black-owned credit union. You'll hear more about it right here. We'll talk with the brothers of the 100 Black Men Greater Huntsville chapter about their 25th anniversary gala that comes up at the end of this month. And also, Dr. Jason Max Ferdinand will make a special guest appearance to get us up to speed on all the great stuff that he's doing up on the East Coast of the United States with young people in music and also nationally and around the world. We look forward to those conversations on next week. In the meantime, I hope that you have a great rest of the week. Remember, as always, knowledge is better than riches. Have a great afternoon, and we'll talk again soon. And be safe during this holiday season.
Thank you for tuning in to Second Chance. We hope that the information that was shared has been a blessing to you and that your life will be enriched as a result of it. We'd love to hear from you. So please send your email comments to Kenneth Anderson at mxlife@aol.com. That's mxlife@aol.com. And check out our Facebook page, 2ND Chance. That's 2ND Chance. In the meantime, have a great week, and we'll talk to you again next week. Good day.